Hello everyone. Now there's no way I could cover a bunch of tier 9 ships for the upcoming ranked season and not cover the Missouri, especially since it is absolutely one of my highly recommended ships and one of my top picks for the season. Even though I do have a fair amount of commentaries on this ship already, since it's a ship I greatly value and appreciate. And of course it has such a good credit modifier that Wargaming had to nerf it when they released all the other tier 9 premiums like the Musashi and the Kronstadt and the Alaska and so forth. None of them have the credit modifier of the Missouri because, well, the Missouri was quite simply raking in far too much money, and Wargaming wasn't planning on seeing quite that much money go into the hands of the players who got it. It's been removed from, well, you can't really get it, but there are still ways to get it in rare occasions. Well, rare and rares, considering Wargaming is obviously milking those occasions, like Santa containers and any sort of special containers that can give you these special ships. So the Missouri is right along the likes of Belfast and Kutuzov, the ships that have been removed but can still be accessed in slightly sketchy ways, to say the least. So the Missouri, well, if you played the Iowa, then you'll probably feel very comfortable in the Missouri. The major difference is of course the fact that it does have access to that radar. Now, there's not really much point for me to push deeper in here, because we don't really know where all of their ships are yet. Based on the minimap right now, it looks like they're sending a massive lemming train down this flank. And considering we have a lot of ships both at B, and we have, what, 4 ships down at A, if we try to push in here, and it turns out pretty much their entire fleet is here, we're going to be outgunned very hard. And our flank is going to be crushed very quickly. So I'm taking the cautious approach here, trying to pick off any ships that make the mistake of giving too much broadside. Of course, with the 3 million improved dispersion module, instead of running reload or anything similar, the Missouri can occasionally throw out some extremely disgusting volleys, like the one you saw on that poor Mayoko. Right now though, still don't have too much vision. We see a Friedrich de Grosse that's down at A. I'm trying to reverse closer to the cap so I can support it with my radar, but I'm also in a position where I can disengage if need be, because we are still missing a lot of information. And more importantly, we have a lot of ships that are pushing very aggressively into this cap. It looks like we have a Kronstadt division. Now I do have to question that a bit, because you don't really need to push that close in the Kronstadt, and the Kronstadt doesn't exactly make for the best nose-in tanker because it only has that 25mm bow, and in general it's got a lot of 25mm armor. We lose Arizuma, who gave far too much broadside. There are torps coming my way. They shouldn't reach me. Oh, they might actually... Oh, am I gonna hit one? Yeah, we are in fact eating one. So the Cossack dropped some torps this way, but I ate it on the stern, so it's not the end of the world. I had actually reversed just within range of eating those. Still though, we do get vision of the other battleship on the other side as well, so that means we can actually play a bit more aggressive on this flank, because it means that they do have some forces, and the Udaloy is there. They have 3 ships at least on that flank, so it should be a fairly even fight, which means if I can just get rid of this Leon, which is kind of locking down this right flank, if I can just get rid of this guy, then I'll be able to turn in and push. Because if the Leon doesn't die and I try to push in, then, well, I'll be putting myself into a crossfire with him holding that flank. So I'm trying to get rid of this Leon as soon as possible so I can push in after he's gone. Keep note of the concealment, of course. One of the greatest strengths of the Missouri is the fact that the concealment is exceptionally good at 12.2 kilometers. And combined with your radar, it's one of the major reasons why I also consider it such a strong pick for arms race. Add in concealment buffs on this thing and, well, it shouldn't be too hard to perhaps even be able to stealth radar in this thing. It's going to be a significant threat. So it turns out there was St. Louis behind the island as well, so they basically had an entire fleet waiting there. So I'm still not too eager to push too aggressively up there. If anything, I'm just trying to get a bit of broadside so I can maybe deal with this Cossack, because this Cossack has been very annoying in locking down this flank. I land some good shells on another cruiser hiding behind the island. The big problem, of course, with their entire fleet hiding behind that island is that they don't really have too much vision. So if we just keep pushing here, we should be able to get something done. My left flank is actually collapsing, which is a bit surprising considering they had a very strong force there, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but they're having huge issues. So I kind of have to go more aggressive on this flank right now, because at this point we're down points, and we're down a cap, and we're also down 2 ships. So playing safe is no longer an option. You gotta keep in mind, usually the best way to win games is to let the enemy play or extend, make mistakes, and punish those mistakes. But if you're down on points, you can no longer use that safe method of trying to secure wins. It's the safest, most simple way of getting wins is letting the enemy make mistakes. But when you're starting to fall behind this far, you're down ships, you're down caps, you're down points, then it becomes time to play aggressive. The York, of course, doesn't have the armor to bounce any of my AP, I just overmatch it, so someone finishes him off after I hit him for a 22k damage volley. Now I still know that there's some ships back here, but with those kills we have pretty much secured the firepower advantage on this flank. So now it's absolutely time to keep pushing and try to get rid of this guy sitting behind the island just farming damage basically. Using the minimap circle to try to land some shots on that Donskoy. You can of course also tap the map key to get better view of what's going on behind the island. Right now though, they are both spotted and I'm undetected, so there's no need for me to push around the corner right now. In fact, I'm just gonna calmly heal up and see if I can maybe punish some of these ships. I'm aiming high to get an idea. My lock-on is actually on the St. Louis. I think this is a bit of a replay bug. But his acceleration is so good. Did I catch him in time? I did not. Wow, I actually got 4 bounces on him. That's a bit surprising. Of course, French acceleration with the speed boost is amazing, and I should probably have taken a slightly larger lead. Using the radar to get an idea of what they're doing. The Donskoy is probably the best target to get rid of, since we do still have 1 single destroyer left, and getting rid of a radar cruiser would help him a lot. Dispersion trolls me a bit, but I'm keeping him radared, which should help the rest of my team finish him off. I'm gonna call target on him, unless the next volleys kill him. Oh. Making sure I secure that kill. We need to get rid of the radar, and we do get rid of the radar. So that's good, because without a radar threat, they shouldn't have many ways of dealing with our Z46. And the Z46, of course, well, I will be covering that one later, hopefully, is a very strong dueling destroyer thanks to the smoke hydro combination. One of the biggest weaknesses of that ship is radar, so getting rid of one of the radar cruisers is great. At this point, I'm just holding a fairly aggressive angle, because if we look at the left side of the map, even though my Musashi is going on a pretty questionable flanking adventure, our Gneiser now appears to be pushing into that A cap. If they can contest that cap, well, we're not really in a hurry then, because the points are pretty even. We actually have a small points lead. We do have a kill advantage, so there's really no need to charge in and get myself killed at this point, especially since I can easily farm this Duke of York, who's caught between me and the island, and try to get as much damage in on him as possible. I am getting HE spammed a bit, which obviously does hurt, but the Missouri center deck armor is strong enough to deal with that St. Louis HE spam, so not really much to worry about. The Musashi can be an issue because he can overmatch me, but I'm keeping the island between me and him. DD comes around the corner. The Kronstadts might radar him. I would expect them to radar that destroyer and get him killed. It's not happening though, so I switch to the next best target, the Friedrich der Große. The Friedrich der Große is what's keeping my team on the left from, I assume, contesting A, since the Gneiser now decided to go around. And, well, the Musashi is very slowly pushing in, so I'm gonna see if I can get some damage in on him instead. Also, he is giving a significant amount of broadside to me as well. So getting some damage in on that free broadside is always useful, and it should help my team win that left flank. If they win the left flank, they will be able to reinforce and crossfire these ships north of me. So at this point, I'm fighting for map control. That's basically my order of priority. That's what I'm targeting. Kills and damage that might enable my team to get better map control. Yeah, the Musashi is shooting me a bit. By the looks of it, that was big enough hits to be the Musashi, but I get rid of this guy, and the Gneiser now might get something done. Instead of having to rush 2 guys, he'll only have to deal with 1. Just as I start accelerating, some torps get spotted, of course, so I'm gonna eat one. I'm trying to make sure I'll eat it on my belt, but it runs out, so there was no need. In a situation like this where normally I would probably eat the torp on the nose, simply because for the reduced citadel damage would allow me to heal more. But in this case, with the St. Louis constantly spamming me and potentially having to brawl that Musashi soon, and with potential destroyer in front of me, I don't want to use my damage con. And if you get a torpedo in the nose, your chance of it being flooded is much higher, so I tried to take it on the belt to reduce the chance of the flooding. And it wasn't really relevant though, because it did run out. I can no longer shoot those ships, so it's time to start dealing with this Musashi. The Musashi is turning in, and since I have AP loaded, there's not really much I can do about him. I still want to push him though. My radar catches the Akatsuki. Will anyone shoot him? It would be good to get rid of that guy. I'm calling target, but sadly my ships are focusing on the cruiser. They haven't noticed him yet. I have one shot before my radar runs out. And I really hope I get rid of him, because he's stopping me from pushing at this point. I cannot push as long as there's a DD on the flank. I do manage to secure the destroyer kill, and that should open up this flank for me. Because, well, I still have a nose-in Musashi, which is obviously going to be an issue, but Musashi is one of those ships. This is one of the reasons why I didn't really rate it as highly as it could be rated for ranked. Now, don't get me wrong, if there's a lot of battleships, if there's a ton of battleships around and a lot of cruisers, then the Musashi will be amazing because of its sheer capacity to basically overmatch everything it faces. But if it's forced into a lot of brawls and it has to switch target and stuff like this, well, you can see the turret traverse. It's sluggish as hell, and the ship in general is very clumsy. I angle just enough that I'm baiting him to shoot my belt. He can of course overmatch my nose, but what I'm trying to do here is make him shoot my belt armor. My angled belt armor is easily good enough to bounce those Musashi shells. Now making it look like I'm going around his right side, but in actuality I'm gonna swing around the left. He shoots my belt again, which is a mistake, and I go for that frontal armor weakness. There's the citadel available right there. My first volley is a bit too far to the right. To be fair, dispersion wasn't exactly doing me any favors there either, and that does annoy me a bit because this would have been my Kraken kill. And actually my goal this game was to try to get a 3 million Missouri game, just to show you guys the sheer credit potential, and that's why I'm a bit annoyed that I missed out on this Kraken. I'm going for it again, but you know what, this is the part where the team suddenly chimes in. Oh hey, let me help you out there, buddy. And they finish off the Musashi. The St. Louis is heading towards the border. You see that black smoke. If you see black smoke coming from a French cruiser, it means the speed boost is active. And that means your lead must be much longer than it normally is, because they are so much faster. Taking a hefty lead in front of him. Is that enough? Looks pretty okay. Ah, he turns into the border. He turns into the border and starts border humping. Can I get the kill? We do get the kill, so that's our fourth one. The hopes of the Kraken might still be alive, except we don't really have any idea where the Udaloy is. He was last spotted down south on an adventure. If I'd gotten the Musashi kill, that would have been my Kraken. Maybe we can kill the Udaloy. He's so far away though. Highly unlikely. And he's got Fiji on one side and Z46 on the other. It's unlikely we'll be able to get anything done here. It's worth taking the shot though. If he doesn't hit torpedoes, and he hits torpedoes, and the game ends. So not really the longest match, but looking at the scoreboard, this is of course the power of that Missouri credit modifier. Whenever you want to make a lot of money, if you own a Missouri, if you don't own a Missouri, well, you got a Musashi Kronstadt, whatever. You slap all your credit camos, you slap all your credit flags, you slap everything that generates credits, you slap it on this ship, and then you play, you get your daily win, whatever, and you just rake in the money. The Missouri is of course the best at this because it's got that pre-nerf modifier that no other ship has, and that means you make insane amounts of credits playing this ship. If I'm a bit sad I didn't get that Kraken. I think we could have gotten closer to that 3 million goal if I'd gotten my Kraken, but it's not like a 2.5 million credit gain from a single game is a bad reward either. 4 kills, 6 citadels, We did help secure that one cap. We got Dreadnought for tanking. We got First Blood, Devastating Confederate, and High Caliber. So basically, we did a bunch of tanking, we did a bunch of damage, and that's exactly what we want to see. Team score-wise, 2.6k base. Perhaps not the most insane base XP, but pretty rewarding experience regardless, especially since at one point it looked like we were losing this game quite hard, since our entire left flank kind of collapsed and we gave up a 2-0 cap advantage. Detailed report wise, well, it's mostly the AP story, of course. If it comes to ranked, then you obviously want to use significantly more HE, especially since with the radar you can often pick and choose when you're actually going to be spotting destroyers, so you can actively switch to that HE in preparation. I still got 44,000 damage upon your spotting, and that was mostly radaring the ships hiding behind that island. Like, my radar only really got one destroyer killed, but on the other hand, it did a ton of damage to all those ships trying to lurk behind that island and trying to lob shells on us. So even against other ships than destroyers, that has a lot of value. 1.5 million potential, perhaps not the highest, almost 100,000 damage tanked. The Missouri, of course, is one of my favorite picks, for a good reason. It just brings so much utility and so much a bit of everything. It doesn't have too many real weaknesses, and it's just a strong ship. Let me show you guys my recommended build for this ship. Right, as usual, let me start with the modules. Now, order of priority: damage con, heal, radar. Yes, the radar is fantastic, but ultimately your own survival is still more important. However, if you do have the Missouri, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be running all three of these consumables, because, well, you can afford it easily. You make so much money in the Missouri. Upgrade wise, turret survival. The other option is auxiliary armaments mod for secondary and AA survival. AA more for randoms, of course, since carriers won't be in arms race. But ultimately main armaments mod is the way to go. Additional tankiness. AA range, once again, here you can make some modifications for arms race specifically. You can probably switch it out for secondary battery mod. It might be useful shooting down some planes that spot you, but secondary battery mod might be more valuable in arms race, considering it will bump your secondaries to 7.2, I think. It gives you range, doesn't it? Yeah, that does give you 20% range. So it does have a slight impact here. But considering we're not going to go secondary build, the actual impact will be quite small. Rudder shift, you got enough concealment. Now you can run both damage control or you can run steering gears. This is kind of up to you which one you choose. Personally, I kind of like steering gears because, well, you're so stealthy. 12.2 km concealment, the ability to turn around, the ability to just disengage with your stealth should be enough to allow you to survive without running the damage control mod. On the other hand, if you like parking nose in a lot and just sitting nose in, like I did in the vid, for example, in the vid earlier, damage control system mod 2 would probably have been more useful. So either one of these is a good choice. Propulsion mod, don't really rate it. I mean, if you find yourself stopping and reversing and all of this a lot, maybe, but ultimately this one I would say comes down to playstyle. Concealment, for obvious reasons, that's one of your great strengths, and especially for arms race it's going to have great synergy. And finally, this rather unique improved dispersion module, which is fantastically useful for landing those pinpoint volleys. I've experimented with both reload and with the better dispersion, and ultimately I do prefer the better dispersion one. Even though you can throw out more shells, being able to punish broadsides and such with more accuracy is, in my opinion, more valuable. Captain perks wise, if you have it, William Halsey is of course a fantastic choice. If you have him available, not just because of his bonuses, which is if you get a double strike you get 10% concealment, or if you get Confederate you get that faster reload on the main guns. No, it's also because you get the expert marksman, which gives you faster turret traverse, which means that you actually have a pretty snappy 36-second turret traverse on the Missouri, which makes it very quick compared to other battleships. Still though, priority target number 1, especially useful for knowing when DDs are torping you. Expert marksman, superintendent, concealment expert, adrenaline rush, fire prevention, and basics of survivability. Now, you can make some switches here, as I mentioned. If instead of running rudder shift you decide to run for the tankiness, you go for the increase the fire reduction, then instead of basics of survivability, you might instead spec into vigilance. In fact, for arms race, depending on how many DDs we see, if we see many, which is what I'm kind of expecting, then vigilance might actually be a better choice than basics of survivability. Also, we have to consider the possibility of very heavy DD spam, in which cases skipping either of these and instead going for jack of all trades for faster radar cooldown and damage control cooldown, and using the improved expert loader. With the 75% faster, you can actually switch very quickly for a battleship. So ultimately for arms race, it might even be the best choice to just go jack of all trade plus expert loader and completely skip the second 3-pointer. That remains to be seen. Once again, this is a lot of speculation. I expect to see a heavy DD meta, but that might completely flip on its head. Usually the way the meta works in ranked, it tends to go in waves. People bring a lot of DDs, and then players get frustrated by all the DD spam, so they start bringing radar cruisers, and then all those radar cruisers make life so hard for the DDs that they get frustrated that they switch to battleships, and they start deleting the radar cruisers, and then those guys get annoyed and they switch back to destroyers to deal with the battleships, and it's like a cycle of constantly shifting what's the flavor of the, well, day, week, whatever. So it kind of remains to be seen, but ultimately either of these builds should work, and as long as you go for the base build, which is Priority, Expert, AR, Superintendent, Concealment, and Fire Prevention, anything else you add on top of that is going to be very flavor based and not so much the absolutely optimal best. Once again, meta dependent. Flag-wise, you want the absolutely basic flags, of course, which means you want your increased heal and you want your fire reduction, and if you're going to play ranked, of course, you want your detonation flag, even if you're playing a battleship, because, well, losing a battleship early in the match because he was dumb enough to not run the detonation flag is very frustrating for everyone on your team, including yourself. Other flags that will be useful is faster cooldown on your consumables and perhaps even faster speed. The Missouri is fairly fast already, but adding more speed to it never hurts. Really fast actually, at 33 knots. Right now I'm just running the credit flags, of course, which is why you saw that absurd credit gain, because that's one of the greatest strengths on the Missouri, the ability to just rake in the money. In fact, playing arms race with the Missouri is probably a really easy way of just raking in 50 million credits while you grind your way through rank 1. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys later.